Welcome to Beyond the Press Release, a production of Gorecom, in which we take the time to speak with small cap executives after they put out important news. Guys, if you believe in the future of renewable energy and the role that uranium and nuclear is going to play in that, then you're going to love this interview with Azincourt Energy, because Alex Klenman, you see on the screen right now, the CEO, has been calling for the rising price of uranium ever since we started interviewing him. And it's moved from about $50 back then to over $70 right now. So he's been prescient. We're going to ask about that. But in the meantime, for those new to the story, why is this happening? Well, after a decade-long slump, a uranium price on the rise, fueled by a global shift in support for nuclear energy, as we're seeing, and that's creating demand. But on the other side, there's another factor. Uranium funds, specifically two of them now, have raised over $700 million for the express purpose of buying uranium. And in fact, Sprott Asset Management CEO said that he believes there's going to be a supply shortage in the uranium space unless metal prices get between $75 and $100 per pound. So here comes Azincourt. Why are we here? They control a majority, almost an 80% interest in the 25,000 hectare East Preston uranium project. That's located at the Athabasca Basin, Saskatchewan, which is the world's leading source of high-grade uranium and currently supplies about 20% of the world's uranium supply. What did Alex have to say about the results? Because they put in over $3 million. We're going to talk about that. Quote, you got to love this quote. If you're hunting for a uranium deposit, this is what you need to see. We continue to be well within a practical discovery timeline. I love that quote. Alex, welcome back. Let's talk about it, my friend.
Thank you, George. Always great to be with you, and I love your intros.
Hey, you make it easy when you got a great story for me to tell, right? And right now, uranium and nuclear has been on the minds of everybody throughout the year. We're starting to see the push in pricing that we all expected would happen, and you did. So here's what I'm going to ask you. You were right about uranium price from day one. You weren't talking about. What's your take on the overall uranium market now, and where do you see it going in the next 6 to 12 months?
Yeah, no, I mean, you're giving me a lot of credit for seeing into the future, but it certainly wasn't. I'm no genius. I simply listened to the right people, and you study the fundamentals. You knew eventually that this was going to happen. You've been talking about it for years. There is a supply deficit looming. You know that there's a lot of long-term contracts with U.S. utilities that need to be signed. They still haven't really begun on that. These are typically the things that you see in and around good spikes in the spot price. So yeah, we're at $70, $75 ask. That's remarkable. Honestly, if there was a better macro picture in terms of the broad markets, I think uranium equities would be flying right now. But we're close. We still, I mean, if you look at this week, it's a little funky. A lot of the uranium equities, particularly explorers, have backed off. But there's, I think, broad market issues at hand, and there was profit on the table. Where else is there profit on the table? And it's been a pretty rough year. And so I think we're seeing a little bit of sellback here, but that's fine. I'm really not worried long term. I think we'll see, very likely $90 to $100 spot in the near future. And yeah, we're in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, and it's not just you talk in your book. You talk about Sprott, the asset manager, the CEO, John Ciampaglia, who said it's got to get to $75 to $100 a pound. So we're not even at the bottom of his bottom.
Yeah,
we're in the low 70s. He's saying it's got to be 75 to 100. And that is great for you at East Preston, right? Because even if you had done nothing else over the last couple of years, but you've done lots, if you did nothing else, you get a 50% better valuation on the uranium you've got. So let's talk about East Preston. I gave an intro as to what it is, and you're an elephant country. We didn't even talk about that. You're surrounded, so you're in the right place. The last round of drilling, how to go, and talk to us about the progress at East Preston. And as always, I'm going to say, not too geological speak, so a lot of people can understand it.
Understand. No, that's great. Yeah, no, I mean, we're doing exactly what we set out to do. If you go back, you look at interviews, you look at editorials, you look at things back when we started the drilling at East Preston, we were following a particular exploration model. Find the alteration and chase that alteration. So 2 years ago, we ran into our first real big areas of alteration. This is hematite alteration. This is sort of the outer halo where there are uranium deposits. You typically find these large halos of hematite alteration. So we've drilled through that. This year, again, we see more hematite, more alteration zones, but we're running into relevant clays. And typically, these clays are found in closer proximity to uranium mineralization. So elite, dravite, these types of clays, we've run into those now. We're seeing elevated uranium values within those packages. So, you tick a lot of boxes. These are the things that you have to see if you're going to make a uranium discovery. So we're finding all of the right stuff. The only thing that we haven't done is run into any extended mineralization in a drill hole. But I mean, we're on target. We're on time. We're doing all the right things, and we're seeing all the right things. So,
following the clues,
guess,
you're getting closer and closer.
Absolutely. I mean, educated guesses is we're going to run into it at some point here. Now, having said that, we do have a large segments of the market and investors now who have very short attention spans. They want instant gratification, and they want it yesterday. That's why my quote that you mentioned, where I talk about it, well within a reasonable timeline here. That's exactly where we're at, and people need to realize that. They have to understand that. And anything done really quick, one hole, one discovery, those are the exceptions. That's 5%, 1% of the overall exploration programs on the planet. Those types of expectations are, they're good to hold on to, but let's face it, they're logically unreasonable.
It's good. Hey, it's good to hope. It's good to say, hey, I hope Alex's crew get lucky and this one drill hits the mother lode. Sure, but that's not practical. That's not why we're in this business, right? And I love what you said. Well within a practical discovery timeline. So it's not as if you're popping a bunch of holes in the ground and you can't really find anything and you're just going to keep popping. But you're following, you're getting closer and closer, and that's a practical. So you think you're still on a discovery timeline, clearly.
Absolutely. And, I mean, if we hadn't run into the clays this year, less exciting. But those clays, I mean, our neighbors F3, they made a big discovery earlier in 2023, and they ran right through the exact same clays before they made that discovery. So I'm not suggesting that we're doing exactly what they are, but certainly you have to understand that those clays are relevant, they're important, and they're significant, and we've hit them. So we're happy.
Hey, Michael Jordan got drafted #1. He didn't win the chip in his first year. As much as everyone had their hopes up and said, man, he's the best guy, but it took him time and the team, but they worked towards the process, and then we know what happened next. And by the way, I want to quote your chief geologist, because it's not just you, talking your book, because some people might say, he's a CEO. What's he supposed to say?
Yeah, it's my job.
I'm going to quote, he says, the company considers the drilling results to date to be significant, as major uranium discoveries in the Athabasca Basin, such as McArthur River, Key Lake, and Millennium, were primarily the result of drill testing of strong alteration zones related to conductor features. Now, the last part's a little technical for everybody, but just put that in perspective for us in layman's terms.
Yeah, no, it's exactly right. I mean, we're following the science, and people say that, science. Look, that's how this is done. It's not something we're not doing something outside of the box. We're not taking huge risks and trying something that's never been tried before, or we're following a tested, tried, and true exploration plan, a strategy. And, when Trevor, who you mentioned, Trevor Perkins, our BPX, he said, when I got involved with him and we brought him on board, he said, I've done this before. I've made discoveries, and we chased alteration packages. Gave me a list of deposits that were discovered through this method, and it made sense from where we sat. So we're doing it. And I think people need to understand the physical footprint of uranium deposits. Many years ago, these deposits were like tabletops. They were closer to surface, and they were horizontally aligned. Over time, there's been erosion. Those tabletops have moved on and moved away, and have disappeared or moved further away from the source geology. So what we're left with are table legs, if you will, and they're more vertically aligned, and so their footprints at surface can be rather small. I mean, there's multi-million ounce deposits that have 50, 60 meter footprints at closer to surface. So it's easy to step over these things when you're drilling, say, 60, 80, 100 meter gaps in conductors. So, it takes time, but understand, we have the right indicators. We're in the right place for discovery. All of the things you need to do and see done and seen. And so we're excited.
Can't ask for anything more, man. So now the next logical question, if I'm thinking about people and myself, but people watching or listening at home, they're gonna say, all right, so what's next? So you received a new round of drill permits for East Preston.
Yeah, it's big.
What does that mean going forward? What are you gonna be doing?
Right. Okay. So number one, that's an indicator that our partners on the deal, the CRDN, the First Nations group in the area, they're supporting what we're doing. Could not have gotten those permits without their support and their advocacy.
Oh, that's great.
Thank you for that to them. They've done a great job. They work with us consistently and continuously. So we have the permits. That allows us another 3 years drilling. So it's not a 1-year permit, it's a 3-year permit. That immediately allows us to begin planning for a next round of drilling. Yeah. So we're in the process right now of planning that. If we're going to get on the ground, it'll be January, February. We're looking at different ways to do it. It's become much more expensive now to drill. Inflation is not just the bread in your cupboard; it's and everything else. It's also everything we work with and work with in the drill process. I mean, road builds, equipment, labor, you name it, fuel, food, supplies, everything's costing more. So most of our peers and ourselves last year found less meters for the same amount of money that we may have spent in previous years. So we're dealing with that, number one. But our targets now are on the southern end of our claim block, and that requires 100 to 160 kilometers worth of roads to be built. So we're looking at maybe going in with helicopters this time, maybe smaller program, but certainly one where we can get in because these costs to build roads and maintain the roads are getting into 7 figures. So we don't want to blow capital that's hard to come by in this market if we don't have to. So we're looking at different ways to make it work, get a bigger bang for the buck that we're going to spend. But we're in the planning stages, and we'll see how things go over the next 6 to 8 weeks, and we have something to announce, sometime at the end of October or into November.
And I guess what you'll announce is your drill program, what you guys are going to be focusing on, things like that.
Yeah. We've got some things that need to fall in place for that to happen, but we're full bore here. We want to put drills in the ground. We want to capitalize. Look, got the clays. That's sniffing. The pies coming out of the oven. You want to take a bite. We want to go back in there, and we're going to try to make it happen as soon as possible.
By the way, before we hop on to lithium for a second, because you got something going on there, I want to have a small side conversation. The one X factor that you and I never saw coming a year ago is artificial intelligence. And what I mean by that is the energy requirements for artificial intelligence. We put up an article a couple of days ago that talks about it just requires an enormous amount of energy.
Wow.
AI is growing by a factor of 10 billion over the last 10 years. It's doubling every 6 months. You're talking about supercomputers that are absorbing that need energy to fuel small towns just to run them. And everyone's saying, in fact, not everyone's saying, but Microsoft just put up a job posting the other day for a nuclear, essentially a power manager specializing in nuclear.
Wow.
Right? Wow. A project manager. How does that change the equation for uranium going forward?
Well, I have to plead ignorance. I was unaware that AI required such power. I'm happy to hear that, because that bodes well. Listen, we know that nuclear energy really is the future, and you get some pushback from people who worry about storage, long-term storage of spent uranium and fuel and things like that. So, there's always that. But listen, technology, where we are today, we're 5, even 10, 15 years ago is just night and day. So, there's much safer storage. There's much safer reactors. Things are really progressing in the right way. And nuclear really is going to be where we see the majority of the planet in the next 10, 20, 30 years.
Switching over to lithium. So you've, a lot of people don't realize that you've had lithium projects in the company's portfolio since 2018.
Absolutely.
And now you unearth what we're calling significant pegmatite field
Yeah.
as your Big Hill project.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about what you're doing on the lithium side.
Absolutely. Now, look, one of the issues, first of all, you're right. We've been in the lithium space since 2018 on and off. We had a deal back in 2018 in Manitoba. It took the promised drill permits, and that deal never came. So unfortunately, we never really were able to move forward with it. When I got first involved with Azincourt, we were called Azincourt Uranium. And of course, uranium was the doldrums. Lithium was doing well. And I basically sold the idea to the board that we are in alternative energy space. We are in clean energy. We should be looking at lithium. So we did the deal and changed the name to Azincourt Energy at that time to accommodate more than one material in the clean energy space. And then, of course, we had some projects in Peru that we did some work on a couple of years ago. We had lithium and uranium on those projects. We chose to let those projects go. Peru is not in our backyard.
No,
and
good decision.
And,
good decision.
Yeah, so we ended up back in Canada, which is really our focus. And then the number one thing here is also drilling where we are in the basin. We have a 4-month window, maybe a 5-month window where we're news relevant. So planning a drill program, we're executing the drill program, and then we have results. And that takes, 5 months. The rest of the time, we're quiet, we're dark. So I've always had people saying, why can't you do summer drilling? Why can't you do this? Why can't you? There's no news flow for the rest of the year. So a couple of years ago, I didn't make it, it wasn't a secret. We started looking for lithium assets that would potentially work, when we're not doing East Preston. So we found something. It was brought to us by a group out of Australia. They were very involved with the Allkem merger. Now, Allkem is the 5th or 6th largest lithium company on the planet. It's a $6 billion Australian merger. These guys were right in the middle of it. They've made big discoveries in the lithium space. They have lots of credibility in the lithium space. So they partnered with us on this project. They're actually going public with another deal later this year. And this asset was sort of outside of where they were and where they're concentrating. So we grabbed it. We made a nice partnership. We're using their geologists. They're exercising and basically running the exploration side of things. We're funding. Project that we have, Big Hill Lithium Project, is in Newfoundland. We're about 5 kilometers south of the Kraken discovery. Anybody knows the lithium space? The Benton-Sokomon discovery is significant. We're only at certain points of our claim block are only about 5 kilometers away. These pegmatite discoveries typically swarm. They're not concentrated. When you find one, you're going to find more. So we got on the ground earlier this year. We did our really first recon program, and the good news out of that program is we found a significant pegmatite field we didn't know existed, and we like it. We're going to sample it.
You're pleasantly surprised, right? I mean, you're nicely surprised by that, right?
Listen, yes, it's not that we grabbed the ground blind. We knew that there was a reason why this was staked and why it was picked up by this group who knows the lithium space quite well. So I'd like to say I was totally surprised, but I wasn't. I'm happily surprised that we found it so early. Ground's never been explored for lithium or pegmatites. Newfoundland was not on the map for that. And we have great government data. We have lots of things to work with. But first step was a nice discovery of the pegmatite field. We're going to define how big and how wide. We want to see if we can see any visual spodumene. We want to see what they hold. But it's a really good first step, and that's what we're doing. Outside of East Preston, we've got our feet firmly planted down the lithium space. Yes, it's grassroots, but it's got a lot of upside to it, and gives us something to do when we're not working our primary asset at East Preston.
What are next steps at Big Hill?
Like I said, we're going back on the ground as soon as we can. We're gonna, there's snow, and that obviously hurts the ability to spot the pegmatites and get it in sample. But we have a plan for early spring to get back in there after we're done with East Preston, and we'll conduct a second round of recon. We're going to sample the pegmatites we found. We're going to get into maybe some channel sampling, and really what we're trying to do is generate drill targets. And that generating drill targets isn't simply a visual thing. you really want, the geochemistry, you want to know where to put those drills, where your best bet for a discovery is going to be. So that's the next stage of planning and strategy, is to find the best place to poke some holes. But we will drill at some point. We just want to make sure that the targets that we drill are the best ones available at that point.
All right, Alex, thanks for joining us as always, buddy. Great to see that you're fulfilling your mission there of being an energy company. You've got the uranium side, you've got the lithium side. I love especially what's going on in the uranium side. I got to tell you, and especially I'm an AI guy and see the demand that AI is creating, and will create what they expect to create. Like I said, when Microsoft hires a nuclear program manager for mini reactors and all that kind of stuff, it's serious. But I love the fact that you're not a one-trick pony either. You've got more going on than that. And can't wait to have you back on, my friend.
Awesome. Really appreciate it, George. Always a pleasure to chat. And if anybody needs to learn more, go to azincourtenergy.com or shoot us an email and we'll get right back to you.
Well, all over our screen, they're going to see the website, your social media feeds, and all that. So whatever your preference, guys, is just go find the company at your preferred social media platform and know where you go. Thanks for joining us, everyone. If you've been watching or listening by podcast on Spotify, Google, Apple, your favorite podcast platform, it's Azincourt Energy, trades in Canada, AAZ for friends in the US, AZURF. Go do your due diligence. Like I said, if you believe in the future of renewable energy, you have to. And the role uranium is going to play, and the rising prices now, how prices are really starting to move in the uranium space, then you got to take a close look at Azincourt. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day. See you next time. Hey guys, the video's over, but don't forget to help your company by liking it and even leaving a comment below. And then don't forget to help yourself by subscribing to our YouTube channel so you never miss another great Agoracom small cap video.